Thanks. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday morning, about to be Sunday afternoon. Uh, I was doing a little studying um, of the Bible, and uh, I was reading some passages in the New Testament, and one of the items that I came across got me to thinking, and it's something that I've often thought about, and it's also something that I've settled in my mind a long time ago, actually. Um, Even though I think about certain things frequently, there are a lot of things that I think about frequently that I've already settled in my mind. Basically, what that means is that I've come to a conclusion of what I definitely believe about whatever thing I've settled in my mind. And one of those things has to do with the whole scenario of Jesus paying for my sins, which is something I don't believe because the reason being is because if my sins were paid for by somebody else, then technically I could not suffer any hardships. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that I haven't suffered hardships in my life. I mean, and it's so weird because I hear other people that call themselves Christians, they'll say something to the effect, Jesus paid for my sins. By his stripes I am healed. But they never get better physically. I mean, their bodies continue to um, decline and get sicklier over periods of time. And their minds are vexed. And what I mean by that is like so many of them are so aggressive and angry natured. I mean, the joy that's supposed to come with this whole situation isn't prolifically there. I mean, they're out there struggling and fighting against the world. And they talk about spiritual warfare. And a lot of them believe you have to fight a spiritual battle. But why? Why do you have to fight a spiritual battle if your sins were already paid for? If a battle was already won, what battle is there to fight if that's a truthful philosophy? And make no mistake, people are battling. Christians are fighting inside and out. They're fighting in their heads, they're fighting out in the world, and simultaneously they're saying that their sins are covered by the blood. And it's so weird because you go out there and fight the world's going to fight you back. More times than not, if the world fights against you, the world's going to win and you will be wounded. You will have your own stripes. And speaking of those stripes, what I mentioned just a little bit earlier, these people, their stripes aren't being healed. These stripes given to them by the world. They're receiving stripes, lashes. The world is on a nonstop siege to attack any and everybody. That don't just mean Christians are being persecuted. Everybody's being persecuted. So, and everybody's suffering alike. So, how is it that somebody else paid for my sins? The situation is this: that can't be true because the Messiah told his own disciples, You're going to go out into the world and you're going to suffer. You're going to be persecuted. He told them that. Basically, they're going to pay for whatever they do, whether it's sin or not. They're going to pay. He told his disciples, yeah, you're going to have to go out into the world and you're going to have to pay a horrible price. And it unnerved them. And you know what's so interesting about that whole scenario of persecution is this: ain't a Christian alive that I know trying to put up with being persecuted. They resist being persecuted. They ain't down with that. The Christians that I know, they're like, man, you ain't persecuting me. You can't judge me. They resist. They fight back. But clearly a battle is raging. What battle is already won? The battle for the soul? I don't think so. I mean, how can it be won if you're still fighting? And if it's won, why are you still fighting? If somebody else paid for your sins, why are you suffering for your sins? You ain't suffering for nothing. I mean, suffering it's like cause and effect. Something causes your suffering. And for the most part, aside from a few, well, I guess there really are no exceptions, but sometimes uh, the way circumstances and the way fate works, it appears as though people are victims of circumstances. It's like they say bad things happen to good people, and things seems like, like coincidences and that kind of thing. But technically, according to the Bible, it's all by design. So whatever happens to good people, if bad things happen to good people, and that's another thing. I'm going to talk about that in another video, but if bad things happen to good people, it was preordained. It was by design. Read the book of Revelation. It'll tell you so. But the Messiah is not your scapegoat. You have to pay for your sins. You do something bad, the law will ensure that it comes back upon you. I mean, what do you think judge not means? Because with what measure you judge, the same measure will be given back unto you. What do you think that even means? And the Messiah said that. The disciples, especially those cats that came later after the original 12, they're the ones that try to promote that whole philosophy that your sins are paid for if you believe. But here's the thing: if you believe, you do like the Messiah told the one person he healed, go and sin no more. That's if you really believe. And that raises up a whole new can of worms. Do people really believe, or do they just think they believe? But huh, you got to come to grips with reality. And the Messiah would take his disciples to the side and tell them the meanings of his parables, because he was trying to get them, hey man, you got to come to grips with reality. You got to come to grips with reality. You pay for your sins 100%, without a doubt. You pay for your sins. And if you don't believe that, go back and look at the exploits of Moses. And And I'm talking about after he led the Egypt, not the Egyptians. He led the Hebrew people out of Egypt. After he led the Hebrew people out of Egypt, they were out of bondage, but they weren't out of the wilderness. So what's better, to be in bondage or the wilderness? They were suffering in the wilderness. As a matter of fact, the first generation died in the wilderness. The second generation, they kept fighting battles and got progressively disobedient until they got scattered and got exiled, turned right back around, and a whole lot of them got lost and went back into slavery, that kind of thing. For people under the jurisdiction of people that were worse than the Egyptians. The Philistines did a number on them a great many a times. But don't believe the hype. You have to pay for your sins. And the only way you can get out from underneath that is like the Messiah said, go and sin no more. The Messiah is not a scapegoat. He is a wayshower. That's what Messiah means. The name Yeshua means rescuer. But somebody comes to rescue you, you have to follow him out of the wilderness. You can't just say, okay, he came in the wilderness and now he's going to lead me out of the wilderness and I'm just going to sit here. He's not going to put you in a wagon and pull you out of the wilderness. You have to get up and walk out yourself. And he's already walked out. Hopefully, you didn't forget to follow him because if you did, you might have bigger issues. But that being said, you still, as long as there's breath in your body and, an inkling of perception in your mind, you can still walk out of the wilderness. Anyway, thank you for listening and God bless.